موطني موطني الجلال والجمال والثناء والبهاء في رباك في رباك.
I want to take this moment to give a land acknowledgement. I invite everyone here to take a moment to recognize and honor the original caretakers of the land that we currently reside on. Thank you to the Chinook, Nez Perce, Shasta, Alsea, Siletz, Kalapuya, Molalla, Umatilla, Tillamook, Klamath, Siuslaw, Cowlitz, Cathlamet, Coos, Clatskanie, Cayuse, Sahapton, Tutuni, Coquille, Umpqua, Grand Ronde, Northern Paiute, bands of Chinook and Takelma people for taking care of the earth long before any of us. We hope to honor this heritage and pay our respects to the ancestors, elders in relation to the past, present, and future. We also acknowledge the systemic policies of genocide, relocation, and assimilation that still impact many indigenous families of Turtle Island today. As settlers and guests on these lands, we respect the work of indigenous leaders and families and pledge to make ongoing efforts to recognize their knowledge, creativity, and resilience. Erasure has been and continues to be used as a weapon of genocide against the Native peoples, and today we recognize that Native people are still here and still seeking justice for their tribes and ancestral lands. It is vital we recognize that we will not succeed without acknowledging and undoing the legacy of settler colonialism. That is why we are here today. We recognize the Palestinian struggle from our own country's colonial history. The Palestinians forced into corners of their land during the Nakba brings to mind the millions of Native people forced into reservations of dwindling acreage, both suffering from a lack of access to food and clean water at the hands of the exploitative Israeli and United States governments. As the Israeli military burns down olive groves, we remember the U.S.'s efforts to eradicate Plains Indians by attempting to hunt buffalo into extinction. It is for this reason that it is imperative that we stand here today recognizing the people and land our nation profits off of. As students in the U.S. fighting against colonialism in Palestine, our activism must start with acknowledging the indigenous people whose land we currently occupy. We acknowledge that the liberation of Palestinian and Native Americans are intrinsic to one another. I would like to end the speech by reading a statement called "The Right of Return is Land Back," written by the Indian Collective. It reads, indigenous peoples have ties back to the land, relationships to the plants, animals, rivers, seas, spiritual places, rooting our livelihood, encompassing kinship systems, economies, language, and culture in that land. The right of return and land back are both promises that harbor the same meaning, that we will outlast colonial governments and laws imposed on us and our relatives, and live in right relations back to where we are from. The origins of Zionism are firmly rooted in colonial European ideas of civilization that we find across our own history in North America. Under the British occupation, the population of European Jewish settlers increased, and many of them took on the role of farming kibbutz, or Zionist compounds. The kibbutz and the physical segregation of Palestinians between Israeli military zones, refugee camps, and exile is similar to this country's history of settler colonialism. How land is stolen in Palestine is no different than how land is stolen here. There's a story told by a Palestinian elder, Yaqub Odeh, about his village, Lifta. It is one of the many villages that were invaded and ethnically cleansed during the Nakba, and Yaqub is alive to see his now abandoned village, alive and breathing, with all of its people still barred from returning. 74 years later, Yaqub tells stories of his aunts and uncles pressing olives for olive oil, his mother making bread and cakes in the ovens, and celebrations held in the village plaza. He tells stories of why the fight to save Lifta is connected to the larger struggle for Palestinian liberation and right of return and of sacrifice to struggle against oppression. This place, once home to hundreds of Palestinian families less than 80 years ago, is now considered a national park. But people like Yaqub are still fighting to return home and organizing for a future where the new generations of Palestinians from Lifta can live dignified lives on their homelands. Thank you.
Thank you for that land acknowledgement. Free, free, free Palestine!
Free, free, free Palestine! والحياة والمجد والهنا والرجاء في هواك